justice for all.
Item 4 is approval of the agenda. I'll entertain motions on this item, please.
Mr. Chair, I'd make a motion to approve the agenda as printed.
And Mr. Chairman, I'd second that.
We have a motion and a second on the floor to approve the agenda as printed. Any questions, comments, or concerns? There being none, Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Thompson,
Yes.
Wassick.
Yes.
Patton,
Yes.
Okay. Item 5 on our agenda this morning is the Marshall County Hazard Mitigation Grant Application Siren Project discussion and possible action. Okay, who would like to go first?
I'll present what I sent out to you.
Okay.
I did have some changes and I sent those out yesterday. I had put on 80% back when I first made this, but it's 75%
So you backed
that is
that down.
federal. Yeah,
Yep.
so I changed the numbers to correlate with that.
Do we have a set of this for Robert? If we need?
I might have, nope, I don't,
Okay.
but I can give him my copy.
Yeah, do that or I'll give you mine when we're done.
Rip one off.
Yeah, I was gonna say, yeah. So what I have done is the total projected project for right now for incorporated and unincorporated, total would be $733,933.09. That's what information I had sent before, and that hasn't changed. Of that, the city's portion would be 270,000 per the quotes now, which aren't official quotes. And the county's portion would be $463,931.98. Again, before grants, but those are those unofficial quotes. If we do an applicate, right now, the application sits in option 1, just so you know, because that's the way we presented it before we knew what FEMA had available. So application was put in for $733,933.09. FEMA funding is generally at 75%, which is that note over on the right. But the best case scenario, the maximum funding right now available to Iowa is 429,000, which doesn't equal up to 75%.
And is that the entire state?
This is what they've set aside for us. It is
Okay.
the entire state, but this is what they have set aside for us because I was the first one to get in a whole county grant.
Okay.
So at this point, that's what they said, if we move forward with ours
Yeah.
quickly, that would be what we would get from the FEMA portion.
And that was the reason that we decided to go whole county.
Yes, because you'll get a bigger, we will get a better chance of getting the grant.
Yeah.
Yes, yes. So if we split it up into county, unincorporated and incorporated, that wouldn't have made it to the top of that list,
Okay.
correct?
Yeah.
So we would not be sitting at,
I think that's an
yeah.
important.
correct. Yeah, I think so too. So splitting that up is not an option if you want to be getting that 429,000 from FEMA. So
And
then
that's
there's,
not just the counties, county either, right? It's also the communities,
yes, this is for the whole grant. So just looking at it as one project,
and they also gain from this too.
they
right?
do,
Is that-
yes, yep. And I'll kind of explain that a little bit as we go. So if we stay at the point we are now, the state funding would still be 10%, so that's 73,000 there. The city's portion would still stay at their 15%, like we started out with. So they basically have a $30,000 quote each right now. And it ends up being $4,500 a piece or $40,500 total. So if that's where that total comes from. The reason their total does not change, you're gonna see the counties is bigger than their 15%, and I'll explain that here, is because they rank first in population, because we have to grade all of our sirens in the county for our whole project, and who comes first? Well, by population, cities are gonna be higher population. And then you go to your next level, which is unincorporated higher population, which you looked at that map before. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay, so ranking them, we have to rank them higher, so they fall in first. The county funding would be $191,433.09. Of that, there's 12 sirens in that, 3 digipeters, the controlling stations and software, plus the remaining balance that FEMA can't fund due to lack of funds. So your 15% is there, plus the lack of funds out of the 75%. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, okay. So if we were to fund it that way in option one, that note on the bottom there of funding county budget, you promised 54,000. And ARPA funding, if possible, would be $137,433.09. So if we go with option one, that's where I get all those numbers.
Okay.
All right. So, and then I put that note down at the bottom, cities are rated first, so that you
Yeah,
had
so
that.
that's still the 15% we originally talked. about.
Correct. That still falls in your 15%, and that's if you're available to get that ARPA for that remaining amount to put that 137,000 plus over into the county funding part.
So that's the question mark.
Yes, that's the question mark, is your ARPA funding. So your actual budget amount would still remain the same. And obviously, this is on the preliminary quotes. And once, if we go ahead with it, we'll have to go out for bid, all that kind of fun stuff and get bids. But the quicker we move, the quicker those numbers, I mean, the more option the numbers are.
So let's say ARPA, we're short. Let's say we're short.
Yep, if we're short, then we go to option two. So then the next page, total project, like I said, is still there, the 733,000. If we split out 161,933.09 for another project, so we just take that out of the picture, we either reapply for another grant, we wait, we apply for hazard mitigation again, whatever.
So kind of do it in stages.
We do it in stages, yeah. If we do that in stages, the funding could come from ARPA, it could come from county funding, it comes from another hazard mitigation grant, whatever. So that part that we split out. So at that point, the city's portion would remain the same, 270,000, because again, they go first because of population. So we're still keeping the same amount of sirens at the county or at the city level. So city portion would still remain the same. County's portion would go down to 263,750. So the application would be for 572,000. FEMA funding would still remain the same. I was trying to budget this so that we can still get that max amount. That is 80% of 572,000 is at 429. So that's using as much as we can for that FEMA. Does that part make sense so far?
Yep.
Okay. And then state funding would go down because of their 10%, would be 57,200. The city's funding would be remaining the same because again, they still have the same amount of sirens. The county would be 45,300 for a total project for the county of 302,000. So you can see that you're still benefiting from that. Your amount that you're getting for the 45,000 is $302,000 worth of equipment. The thing with this is you may see some changes if you go with option two, which option two is a good option. I would say the best option is your first page, but this is a good option if you don't have that other funding from ARPA. So this option, the problem may be that you're gonna have to add some digipeters because we're taking out some of the sirens out in the unincorporated that act as repeaters for each other. So that map that I brought in before and how they share repeating between each other, we may have to up how many digipeters we get, so we would be removing some of the sirens that we actually would be
No,
getting.
they're the
on
ones that
county
turn
side.
on.
The digipeters are a repeater in place of a siren so that it can activate it. There just has to be so many towers, basically. These are acting as towers all over the sirens, and the digipeters act as towers to talk to each other. So we may see some changes out in the, we will see some changes out in the unincorporated area. We won't get as many sirens, the ones that we proposed. And the cities will still get theirs, but we still have to have our backbone. So we still have to have our digipeters, we have to have our controllers, we have to have our software. Yeah, all of those things. So all those come first on the county side. The backbone comes first, and then the sirens would come. So we would buy the backbone first out of this 302,000 that would be the county's portion. And then we'd have to see what we have left for sirens.
So we might be short sirens on
We will
option
be,
two.
short. Yeah, we will be short $161,000 worth of sirens, which if you divide that by 30 is several.
Oh,
Yeah, so we're give or take,
almost.
yes, almost 6 out of our, how many did
12
I
that we
put?
did.
12, so about half.
But we're getting the state funding
But-
and the same amount from FEMA.
We are still getting the same amount from FEMA, correct? We would still, if we did this, we'd still get the same amount from FEMA,
Less from the state.
less from the state, correct? We'd get almost 15-ish less from the state.
Question,
Would it be the 45,300 plus the 54,000
I'm sorry, I missed.
on the county out of pocket?
On the county out of pocket would only be the 45,300 on the option 2.
Okay, so not the.
Yeah, because we're
54,000
cut, yeah, that's
Okay.
the total you would get for that
Okay.
50, or
Just making sure.
45.
are
Yeah.
ARPA funds allowed for this?
They are if we would be, yes, what we would do is we do the project and it's almost gonna look like
Two
option
different
2.
projects.
Mhm.
It's gonna look like option 2.
I see you're splitting it into two.
Yes. So option 2 is technically what we would be doing. And you're still applying for if we did it and you wanted the whole project, you split it up and you're not applying to the federal for 733. You'd be applying for 572.
And then the remainder of the project would be the ARPA
ARPA
funds as a
funding.
separate project.
Yes, but you actually can bid it as one project, so it's installed.
It
No, I talked to the state about it and they said you could actually
You're
do that as long as
nervous,
you're.
you're
I'm
nervous.
nervous. too.
doesn't just, it
It
doesn't,
just doesn't sound right.
It's 2 projects. You're just splitting it.
I think the way that we'd have to do it is like take the sirens on one side. So the sirens are on
Correct.
one project, and then as far as like the
And then your
digitizers and the
backbone.
control station and the backbone, that would have to be the separate project process because that's gonna be more on the dispatch side. So, I mean, if you look at it, it's kind of like, I'm trying to think of an analogy that would work too. So it's like a house of the mother's house or something like that. So you've got 2 different projects that you're working on. Just one will eventually talk to the other, kind of like an interface.
It's just like if you put up your radio towers and then you bought the radios out of a separate project. So,
And you were confident about this a month ago or so.
yeah, the state said we can split it into 2 projects.
How about FEMA?
They're
They don't
the ones
care.
writing the grant from the state. So we can, I mean, you guys can definitely talk to the state. The state liaison is the one taking care of the FEMA money.
Well, I trust your judgment.
yeah, if
I
you
feel
talk
like-
to them, I mean,
I feel like if we're gonna break it up into 2, it needs to be 2 very distinct parts.
Correct.
That way it doesn't like cross. So
If you
do
wanna
the
do all your
sirens
sirens.
here and do it here, and then just when we put it
Yeah.
in, we write it exactly like we're going to do it, then based on their verbiage as well as the documentation that we put in, then
So
that
you're-
kind of gives us that.
Your project for FEMA will have to be, it'll have to be your backbone because that's what controls it. It can be some of your sirens. And then basically you're just saying, I want to add some more sirens to my project.
Okay.
So you definitely are gonna have 2 separate projects, but I just kind of want you to see the numbers of where they fall.
Well, on 3, you're talking about looking
Um,
and waiting for the possibility of more grants. And I think grants are gonna be drying up.
Yeah,
faster than
grants are.
They
waiting.
currently
And your
are.
prices are gonna go up, so you're gonna
Yeah.
see being able to get lesser, and it's totally up to you. You know, we do project, or do option 2, to me is, it was written as option 1 because we didn't know how much money was at the federal level, or for the federal FEMA part. But that's how it was written, but option 2 is actually the option that looks better for you because you're gonna get the max amount and you'll be able to split off that other project. If you want to do some FEMA funding or some ARPA projects and you have that funding for it. Now, the option 3 on there does state that the state, and I mentioned this before, the state said that there was going to be some changes, but they had not seen anything forwarded to them yet
Okay.
about a 90-10. So I have no idea. They
I've
had
seen
no-
that.
I've seen it 2 or 3 times, but they don't have any guidance at all.
No.
And so imagine that. So that's why I put it on there, so you're aware it could happen, could be a
Straight from the White
90-10.
House, isn't it?
But that's not gonna change the amount of FEMA dollars that we get.
Right.
Right, and actually, we want the 75, so we
Yes.
can get the state portion. But
Yes.
if it's otherwise,
Yes, or
It's still
otherwise ours actually
429.
goes up and FEMA's still remains at 429,000.
Exactly, there's no more
That
money.
is not gonna
And
change.
ultimately, it comes down to this. This is kind of like a one-time opportunity that we haven't had before. And when's the next opportunity gonna come?
Yeah,
Because these grants don't come
This is-
out. I mean, the last major opportunity for something like this was what, almost 30 years ago
it's
for
been some
the,
time ago.
it's been a while.
I think we need to strike while the iron is hot. Get
Right.
this- Get our stuff in and be first in line.
And we are definitely first in line.
Yes,
Now we
it's
just need to, tweak those numbers and say, okay, we're gonna split out, which we're going to anyway, to get the good money. We're gonna split out $161,933, and we're gonna do our own project with some ARPA dollars. And then you submit the rest. You're getting a little less from your state fund, but you're maximizing your FEMA dollars on that
What are your
one.
thoughts, Steve?
I'm liking the second option. The more I look at it.
Okay.
And the only reason I presented the first is because that's how it went in to begin with, since we didn't know that the 429 was the max that they had right now. But I like the idea that we're first in line.
Well,
That's a
ultimately,
great-
this is gonna be a huge benefit for all of Marshall County. There's not.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
It's
I
just
agree.
it's just a huge benefit.
I know there are 4 other grants right now that have been submitted since I submitted for whole
With
counties.
what he said, and when I look over on his paper, what he has circled and what I have circled, I
Option
believe
2.
we're all on the same page.
Do you think there are going to be those ARPA funds, the 161? Do you think we need, are we
I
going?
thought it was
for another-
131, 137. Wouldn't it end up being the numbers on option 1, just divided into 2 projects?
It could be, but let's see.
I think we need to, just like we've done in a couple of others, shoot high in case
Yeah,
there's those
always.
additional, especially if there's an issue, we need like an additional digit or
Right.
something like that. I'd rather shoot high versus than shoot low.
The state funding went down, so that's where you're gonna see a tweak there. So that's where you see that. I'm pretty sure I had to run these numbers like 4 times in the heat yesterday.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, and then-
Yeah, I went from 73 to 57.
yeah, exactly. So you're gonna see that.
Not a ginormous. amount.
Right,
And then
right,
not knowing the guidance.
right. And the guidance may change things, but again, I'm like, man, I hope they don't come through with the guidance for the 90-10 because it really does screw us up.
It does.
Yeah.
Because even though we say we're not having to pay our 15%, 10%, 15, I'm sorry, 15 at the local level.
Well,
Numbers are hard, right?
We do
Oh my
have some
gosh,
things
really?
tabled.
Yeah. Yep.
Mhm.
That's not on this to be able to make a decision,
No,
Right.
so we
But
can't do that.
Other than I think you can direct me to go ahead and change the application because it's not binding us. If we can change the application to option 2 and split out, we're not doing a binding contract because we can always say, no, don't want it.
Based upon that discussion, would somebody like to make a motion?
I'd make a motion then to pursue option 2 then. What Kim has given us here.
I would second that.
All right. We have a motion and a second to instruct Kim to pursue option 2. Any further discussion? Okay. No,
I'm good.
no comments, concerns. Sheriff, you want to chime in? Okay. I
I
think so also. Very happy with it. We have a motion and a second on the floor by, first by Steve, second by Bill, to instruct Kim to pursue option 2. That being said, with no further discussion, Sherry, would you call the roll, please?
Thompson,
Yes.
Wassick,
Yes.
Patton,
Yes,
Okay, motion carried. There we are. Item number 6 on our agenda this morning is funding options for hazard mitigation Siren project, which I think we just did.
Yep, I think probably, once I put this through, then you can make the decision that doesn't have to be hurried through on the ARPA side.
We're in good,
Because it's
we're
a
in good shape
different-
now.
Yeah, it's a different project, so
Okay.
we'll work with that.
So being as how there's nothing to do on item number 6, I'll entertain motions to just skip over that. Just skip it.
I think we can
Skip it.
skip it since we
I think so,
handled it
too.
on,
It's
yeah.
That being said, we are on to item number 7 on our agenda today, which is adjournment. Let the record reflect that we are adjourned at 10:24 a.m.